Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Egyptian delegation that is present at the AIM today, I would like to welcome you all for our country session today. And what we will try to do today is not, without taking too much of your time, try to highlight the key parameters that involve investment reform measures that have happened in Egypt over the past couple of years, and particularly in the past few months. First, I would like to start by explaining who is GAFI. GAFI is the authority responsible for facilitation and promotion and regulation of investment in Egypt. So GAFI has a few functions. Is the voice quite clear?
Can we raise the voice more?
I think we need to turn up the volume.
What's up? Louder? Make sound? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I have. Is it quite clear now? Or should I use the normal mic? Yeah, because they can't hear.
That's clear.
Yeah. Is it clear? Okay. I think this is much better now. So GAFI is the authority responsible for facilitation of investment, organizing all steps for landing investment into Egypt, as well as a promotion function to promote all the projects, the investment climate reform measures, and the different mega projects that the government is handling. Aside from that, GAFI is also the regulator of companies mandated by the companies law and the investment law. Our vision at GAFI is really to be an advanced government authority providing outstanding services to our investors to ensure that we land investment into Egypt and from Egypt through the different layers of investors around the globe. The framework of GAFI really is covered into these pillars. So we promote all types of investment, as I mentioned. We regulate all corporate entities that are subject to our supervision. We provide the investment services under the one-stop shop, from incorporation of companies and joint procedures of land allocation, as well as licensing procedures that are provided under the different regulatory bodies. We establish and manage and develop free zones as well as investment zones. And we contribute through the Dispute Settlement Committee for resolving numerous disputes that investors seek to resolve through the respective ministerial committee responsible for settling disputes between investors and different regulatory bodies. That's GAFI in brief. And what I would like to say is when we explain the reform measures that happened in Egypt and the investment climate and the opportunities, this is very difficult to do without quickly highlighting the macro context of what has happened in Egypt. Egypt has went through very difficult 3 years in 2011 up to 2013. Two revolutions happened at that time. People were calling for social justice and economic development. And to realize that, there were many challenges on the pathway for that. These challenges were economic, these challenges were political. Now with the political stability and with the measures that have been adopted by the government in terms of facilitating the infrastructure needs, in terms of connecting the different roads. So when we invite investors and tell them we're a consumer market of 90 million, we have a roads connection plan that is clear and vivid. We cannot invite investors to invest in Egypt when we have shortage of power, and now we have surplus in power. all these measures were crucial to be able to tackle the technical files relating to investment and relating to the economic challenges. But one of the very important challenges encountered is perception. As a result of different media coverages, there is a misperception about Egypt that we would like to try and rectify today. And I think the best way to do that is to show you an on-site scene of some of the current scenery in Egypt at the moment, so we can share with you the reality until you hopefully physically visit Egypt soon. So allow me to share this short video with you. So we shared with you some of the life scenery in Egypt and some of the future forecasts for projects that are taking place in Egypt in the Suez Canal zone to show you and reflect that Egypt is on the pathway of reform in terms of delivery of projects and mega projects that have been delivered and phased out in the past couple of years. And we will later on share with you some very important economic and financial indicators to solid proof the positioning of Egypt as the destination to go to for launching investment and in the next few years for the reasons we will highlight. But the general reasons why you have to consider Egypt for a destination for investment would be the central location of Egypt and proximity to global markets is a well-known feature of Egypt. It's the gateway to Africa and the Middle East, and at the center and the heart of the world. This location is unparalleled and provides access to a large consumer-based market in Egypt directly to 90 million consumers, and across the regions into the different treaties that Egypt is part of, giving it access to a consumer market of 1.6 billion consumers. a large pool of trained and skilled labor, revamped infrastructure to utilize the underdeveloped areas of Egypt, representing over 90% of the surface area of Egypt that is yet to be developed and is underway in terms of the roadways and the connecting roads that connect the different parts of Egypt. The abundance in natural resources is a very well-known feature and has shown solidarity in the past few years, given several discoveries that have been made in Egypt that confirm the pledge for Egypt's still yet to be discovered resources and different resources available throughout Egypt. The competitive tax rate provided in Egypt at a 22.5%. Egypt is a growing economy, notwithstanding all the challenges that have been highlighted, but Egypt has managed to continue to grow even after such difficult times. The economic indicators confirm that the GDP growth rate has been at 4.3% in 2015-2016. Sectors such as industry, retail, agriculture, real estate and construction have been inspirational to help such growth. Net FDI inflows, if you look at 2010-11, where the challenges were at the highest peak, and they continued until 2012-13, solidly growing afterwards from 2013 and 14, 15, 16. Today, we have last year closed at a 6.8 FDI inflow into Egypt. Net international reserves have grown to $26.5 billion in February of this year. After the flotation of the Egyptian pound, the exchange rate has offered an unrivaled opportunity for investment, especially for FDIs into the country, given the low cost of investment. The net FDI inflows continues to grow in the first half of 2016-17 at $4.3 billion. Balance of payment surplus has been achieved in the first half of 2016-17. Rankings of Egypt have been solidly moving towards positive signals from all the global rating agencies, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, Fitch, at a stabilized positioning for Egypt. The World Bank Doing Business report, Egypt has since a long time improved its ranking at the overall indicator, has jumped significantly in starting up of business from position 73 to position 39. Dealing with construction permits has grown and jumped 49 positions, 56 positions jumped in getting electricity. So overall, the indicators are in favor of Egypt's position and for Egypt's investment climate. There are other investment climate reform measures that Egypt has been adopting, and these can be summarized really in economic reform measures that I will take you through quickly, policy, institutional and procedural, as well as administrative reforms, a comprehensive legal reform package to improve the legislations dealing with investment climate, and a sustainability plan to ensure that all these measures are preserved in a sustainable fashion through institutional measures. If we look at the economic reform measures, the physical reforms in terms of introducing the VAT, reprioritizing the expenditure program to deal with the deficit challenges on the budget. The free flotation of the Egyptian pound was an inspirational move to open up veins for more FDIs into the country. The partial lifting of fuel subsidies and directing subsidies through social programs to those actually in need. Adjusting electricity prices to meet the development and the infrastructure development happening in the electricity sector. On the policy and institutional reform measures, there has been a civil service law introduced to facilitate dealing with different regulatory approvals and dealing with the challenges of over 6 million staff in the government bureau. There is a strategic transformation and administrative reform plan adopted at all levels of the government, including GAFI as the key facilitator for investment. Taking measures to shorten procedures and all requirements, such as approving general meetings and the day-to-day requirements that investors encounter, to shorten the deadlines that these approvals are awarded in. The formation of the Supreme Investment Council to pledge the commitment of Egypt at its top government official, where the Supreme Council is presided by His Excellency the President directly, to ensure that all investment policies are vested down, the joint liability of different government bodies is activated, and to facilitate the bureaucratic challenges that investors encountered. The comprehensive legislative reform plan includes several aspects, from companies law to a new insolvency and market exit law. And at the heart of all these legislative amendments comes the new investment law that has been discussed at the parliament and being adopted within a couple of weeks. The new investment law focuses mainly on procedural facilitation, where approvals are awarded in a specific timeline, the lapse of which is a deemed approval by law. The law explicitly states that dealing with investors and facilitating their requirements at an expedited basis is one of the main KPIs for all government bureau staff dealing with investors. So that assists in the shifting and transformation of cultural barriers when dealing with investors, to facilitate their procedures as a requirement on staff, as a clear requirement for the first time explicitly stated in the law. Guarantees are awarded in line with international best practice to secure the level of guarantees that investors look at typically when investing in any jurisdiction, as well as a temporary incentive program directed along the side with Egypt's overall development plan and inclusive growth strategy, to ensure that the sectors that are targeted are provided enough incentives to invest in the areas more in need of development. Dispute settlement mechanisms to facilitate settlement of disputes that investors may encounter on an expedited basis. These are the main pillars of the new investment law that cuts through the typical bureaucratic challenges that investors may have encountered in Egypt, because this is one of the key challenges. We completely recognize that the law on its own is not enough. More importantly is the implementation. But what we have adopted is a strategy not waiting for the law, but actually acting on the ground. So an example for that is the land allocation procedures introduced by amendments made to the investment law in March 2015. These provisions were not activated until the discussions have had a long series of detail with the different government bodies to explain the philosophy by which this allocation process worked. So we've managed at GAFI to succeed in allocating over 600 plots today in the past 9 months by adopting a machinery that works on the ground with the different government bodies and allocating these to investors from all over the world who are interested to invest in Egypt in the past period. The sustainability of these reforms is very crucial. We are not working on an individual basis. We are working on an institutional basis. People come, manage, and go. But the institutional setting of GAFI and the different constituencies is directed to improve Egypt's international ranking through respective committees that are represented by the different stakeholders in their capacities. to cure the investors' challenges through policies and procedures and not by individual actions. Incentivize SMEs as a program that the government is working on, directed only to small and medium enterprises, given the importance of these type of projects. Our vote of confidence comes from major companies across the world. These companies continue to expand their business, and recently there has been a massive complex, retail complex that is very competitive, that was established and launched in Egypt with millions of dollars investment into it, even in the difficult times over the past 5 years. Companies such as Unilever and other companies continue to expand, and yet more to come. To give you some brief highlights on the investment regime in Egypt, and as also will be amended under the new law, there are different forms of investment in Egypt. Inland investment that is governed by the general provisions, where you will set up a company and operate an activity that is regulated under the companies law or the general commercial activities. These companies will be regulated by the corporate laws governing the setup, will be regulated by GAFI as the regulator for all corporate entities, and will be awarded incentives if they're eligible for incentives under the new law. There is the free zone regime, which is focused on companies directed at exportation into Africa and the Middle East or Europe. And these free zone regimes have been growing in the past few years, and we will continue to expand in them in the different parts of southern Egypt and the areas where we still do not have free zones. There is also the investment zones regime, which is directed at this is not, the difference between free zones and investment zones is that free zones enjoy tax relief, and because they're directed at exportation, while investment zones do not enjoy that tax relief, but they allow creating of investment parks and clusters of industries and different activities in the same place with an extra expedited regulatory approval process. Technological zones is a new concept that is introduced under the new law, targeting to create technological hubs in Egypt in different parts and maximize the potentials in technological industries. As a result of what I told you at the beginning in respect of that Egypt has over 90% of its land still under development, this opens, when we're asked what are the most competitive sectors, obviously infrastructure, power, agriculture, industry. But the fact is, given the size of Egypt and given the long years of these underdevelopment, the opportunities lie in most sectors. And if you go to southern Egypt, you will find agribusiness having major opportunities, and opportunity cost will be very favorable. Engineering and electronics, healthcare, retail, name it. These sectors are available throughout the 1 million kilometers that Egypt represents that are underway for development. Aside from all that, there is the mega projects that the government has committed to. What is the importance of these mega projects, and why has the government went into these mega projects? Well, without mega projects, without infrastructure, without what I told you, dealing and curing the power challenges, without connecting the different parts of Egypt, we cannot sit with you today and tell you, come and invest in Egypt. We have high returns. We have an opportunity cost. These mega projects were crucial and essential to deal with a lot of challenges on unemployment, to open up the veins of the different zones in Egypt that are underdeveloped and require development, to maximize the potentials of trade that can happen through Egypt. So without these mega projects that the government committed to, we would not be sitting here today to talk about the challenges on the technical files of investment and the reforms of legal challenges that may be encountered by investors. The mega projects, we cannot cover all of them because the record of mega projects that have been launched in the past 3 years is unrivaled in Egypt's recent history. But these include a new capital where Cairo has a congestion of 20 million population, and this could no longer continue. And therefore, expansion of Cairo has to happen. And the new capital is a new city that is being constructed on the borders of Cairo to attract the government will be in the new city, movement of different touristic and services opportunities that are available. And if any investor is interested in this project, there are a lot of details that we can share in due course. Development of 1.5 million faddan throughout Egypt, which is another major project to revive Egypt's capability in agribusiness. And the opportunities under this project, again, are unlimited. It's a major project for agribusiness and all forms of it, and it's open for investors. And in fact, the RFPs have been sent out, and it's available for investors to consider if interested. The Golden Triangle is another project that has been launched and under development, and soon details of it will be announced, where there will be a hub for mining and logistical services, industry and transportation projects around that triangle. And if you look at the location of that triangle, it's quite, if you look at that location, that's again a very significant location close to the Suez Canal, close to access to Europe and Africa. So this is another golden opportunity for investors. The new Alamein City is also another major project with endless construction, infrastructure opportunities, different services. And I would like to just stop 1 minute before I start handing to my colleague and highlight a very important approach when tackling or considering investment into Egypt is make sure you go and knock the right door. Because sometimes investors go around through private stakeholders or a wrong government body. And for that purpose, we at GAFI are very happy to take you through any details you need to know, because as a result of knocking the wrong door, you might get a wrong impression about an investment project or the regulatory approvals. We at GAFI, in that context, will be your advisor to take you through your journey of successfully landing your investment in terms of taking on that project, getting all the regulatory approvals, coordinating with the different government bodies, because that's our role as facilitator for investors coming into Egypt. The new Alamein City represents above 12% of Egypt's surface area. And again, that gives you a signal of how much delay we've had over 20 years that is being dealt with all at the same time. And this is what the current leadership is appraised for confronting all these bottled up challenges over the years and opening all these projects for investors to come in and consider them. And the serious investors who have came have had great opportunities in these fields, and we're happy to share some more experiences recently successfully completed. The furniture city of Damietta is another competitive edge for having a full complex, major complex of 333 faddans for manufacturing and industrial zone for furniture, given the capabilities that Egypt has in this area. And there will be research and development centers around that, and that will be opened up for investment quite soon. It's actually opened up, but if you're interested to start liaising with us and talking with the authority and the company dealing with it, we would be happy to take you through it. The logistical center for grain in Damietta, another major project for logistical storage activity that is open up for investors. The leather city in Al Rubaiki another mega project that attracts leather manufacturers and feeding industries in that city, and it's open up for phase 1 and almost phase 2 for investors to come in and consider these opportunities. The development of the Suez Canal region, after Egypt has expanded the Suez Canal, it was done mainly to service the positioning of the Suez Canal zone. The expansion of the Suez Canal was necessary to open up this new hub for logistical services that covers the economic zone in the Suez Canal, Sukhna, West Kantara area, the technological zone, economic zone, and East Port Said. And again, the location of this project is a known golden positioning throughout access to trade around the world, through access to the Middle East, access to Africa. So such a project is an inspirational project for development of all types of industries that can deal with exportation into Africa and the Middle East, as well as logistical services, ship services, and all forms of services that are locational given the proximity to the Suez Canal and proximity to the hub for trade in the region. Before handing out to my colleague from East Port Said company, I would like to just, given the time frame, we've highlighted these factors just to showcase to you, not just the video, not these projects, not just the economic indicators that we've shared on FDI growth and GDP growth. I just don't want you to believe what is sometimes portrayed in the media. Egypt is at a very competitive position. Egypt at the moment has very lucrative investment opportunities. This year, if you miss out on investment, your returns expected will not be like next year. It's the year where the flotation happened. It's the year where all these projects are open. It's the year where investment incentives are being awarded under the new investment law for the designated sectors. So the investment opportunities in Egypt is really now, and make sure you don't miss out. And I thank you very much, and I hand it over to my colleague Ahmed Al Mufti. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khudair, for your comprehensive presentation. My name is Ahmed Mufti. I'm the Commercial Director for East Port Said Development. Before we start our presentation, I would like to ask the investors a couple of questions. As an investor, do you need to enter or expand in an African market? Do you need to enter or expand in a Middle East market? Do you need to enter or expand in the European market? Do you need to be more competitive? Do you need to reduce the shipping lead time for your products? Do you need to reduce the operating expenses in general? The answer for all these questions is our industrial zone, East Port Said Industrial Zone. And I will show throughout the presentation how all of these questions are addressed. But before doing so, let me introduce our company to your good self. Our holding company is Samcrete. Samcrete works in a diversified sectors. One of these sectors is the investment, under which the Industrial Development Group has been established to create our first industrial park in the group, which is called Engineering Square. This is an industrial park that has been up and running for several years now. Upon the success of this park, our holding company decided to move on and establish a new company, which is called East Port Said Development, to create our second industrial park in the group, East Port Said. Let's go through quickly our existing park in Engineering Square in 6th of October City. It's an industrial zone. The land was handed over in December 2007. By April 2008, we had our first factory. Among these factories now, these are live pictures from the park. as you will see now, different sectors, different countries investing in our existing part, Engineering Square. Beside the factories that we have, we also have services that we offer to our investors. Training center, vocational training center, the medical center, children daycare, sports court. These are live pictures from the site, from the Engineering Square site. Hotel, this is our hotel in the park, the food court, investor service center, and the facility management. Engineering Square is really a unique investment opportunity for any investor. Now, moving on to our new project. Why would someone want to go and invest in East Port Said Industrial Zone? First of all, when you do so, the country of origin of your product will be Egypt. And what does this mean? This means that trade agreements that Egypt has with all the different Arab countries, European countries, the United States, COMESA, you will benefit from all these trade agreements. In addition to what Mr. Khudair have shown concerning the competitiveness of Egypt, you will also have a competitive utility cost, competitive labor force. As you see, East Port Said lies at the heart of the international trade. You have an accessible, easy way to the European and the African market. East Port Said Industrial Zone lies within the special economic zone. And this means that you have incentives, fiscal incentives, such as the zero customs and duties on your imported goods and raw material, as well as your machinery. The zone itself is an integrated zone where you have an existing functioning East Port Said port, the logistic hub, the industrial area, and a residential area. The land in East Port Said Industrial Zone is offered for 50 years land lease. In this zone, you will have different industrial parks. You will not find factories scattered all over. You will have a neat parks beside each other with a neat infrastructure. And because of this zone is governed by a special law, it allows the application, the best application of the one-stop investor service center. Now, I will give a quick overview of our project. The industrial zone, the East Port Said Industrial Zone, lies at the tip of the Suez Canal. It's 200 kilometers from the capital of Egypt, Cairo, and it's 20 kilometers from the nearest major city, which is Port Said. As you can see, it's not located in an abandoned place. This is the master plan of our 16 million meter square land. We have plots that starts from 3,000 meters square, and as I said previously, the lands are offered for 50 years lease, renewable to another 25 years. We are targeting light and medium industries, and different industries lies under such categories. As you can see, automotive sector, home appliances, engineering, material, agriculture, pharmaceutical, ICT, and all the different industries are accepted in this industrial zone. What East Port Said offers is the following. We can offer plots of land, fully infrastructures with utilities, power, water, gas, communication. We can also provide an option for the investor to build for him his factory and lease the factory and the land together as a one package. We offer administrative buildings and offices for investors, fully equipped. We offer outlets, shops, food courts, as well as workshops, small workshop for SMEs. Our company recently introduced what's called the shelter company model. The shelter company model is dedicated to those investors who still have doubts and risks and worries about Egypt at this point of time. We allow them not to have a legal entity in Egypt. We'll be their legal entity. We'll provide them with all the manpower needed. We'll provide them with the land and the building. We'll provide them with all the logistics activities, administrative activities. The only thing that they would put is their machinery and their expertise and know-how in the place. So easily, if things doesn't work out as planned, they can easily pull out from the country. We're trying to mitigate the risk. It's a model that will attract a lot of investors to this place. As shown in Engineering Square, in East Port Said Industrial Zone, 25% of the land is dedicated for services and facilities. We have consultancies, we have office spaces, we have training center, conference rooms, sport facilities, transportation, and food court, medical, and all different services. These are live pictures from the site. The site is under construction, the East Port Said site. This is our first prototype factory that's existing in East Port Said Industrial Zone, over 2,000 meters square. This is the factory from inside. It's ready to work now. And I will leave you with a small video to summarize what I've said, just in case that you missed some of the points that I've talked about. Thank you very much. And we're here for any questions that you have. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions? We have 15 minutes. We left them for any questions. Any questions? No questions? Great. Okay, thank you very much for joining. Okay. Please. Can we have the mic here, please, for the gentleman?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I just would like to know what is the profit repatriation process and law abiding that? Profit repatriation from Egypt.
Sure. The new law provides an explicit guarantee on repatriation of profits. We have to distinguish between two things. The past 5 years, given all the circumstances, there has been a bit of challenges on terms of the repatriation, and that's probably the reason of your question. These challenges have been put into a plan post the flotation by the central bank to phase out that backlog over the next year. But for current new investments, with the reserves increasing and with the influx of FDI, this will no longer be a problem. Once you start repatriating, if you launch your investment now in a couple of years or 3 years, it is a guarantee under the new law, and it is being provided as a legal guarantee. So it is awarded by law.
So there is no cap.
No.
No cap of.
Only corporate law requirements if there are any governance distributions and so forth, but there is no cap on repatriation.
Thank you.
It was a matter of availability during the crisis time. That's the fact. But it has always, even if you look at the historical record before 2010, it was never an issue. And on top of that, there is the insolvency and market exit law that is going to be discussed in Parliament post adoption of the investment law that facilitates exits and sort of bankruptcy avoidance procedures to make sure you have concealment procedures that are more facilitated rather than the complex court process. Some ideas like Chapter 11 like to facilitate the exits of investors and liquidation procedures and so forth. Any further questions? Yeah. It's the investment law. There is the new investment law. It has part of the guarantees stated there is the right for repatriation. And this new investment law is expected within a couple of weeks. As for the insolvency and market exit law, it is currently with the State Council for review and then will be transferred to the Parliament for discussion. Thank you. Please.
The gentleman before you mentioned that you can have a lease up to 50 years. And if things go wrong, you can pull out at any time. What's the value of the lease? And can I get a value if I decide to pull out?
So just to make sure I understand the question. So the value...
The value of the lease.
For East Port Said?
Yes.
This is a question for East Port Said.
Are you asking about the value for the land lease for the 50 years?
Yes.
In this project, you pay annually the lease for staying in the land. So when you exit, you stop paying the lease anymore. It's not buying the land and then resell it again at the exit point. So it's more of a rental process. So there is no commitment. If once you stop paying the lease and you want to exit, your obligation towards the land is closed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Well, thank you again very much. And I think it was very important that not only the agency responsible for regulating and facilitating investment, one of Egypt's partner, East Port Said Company, also showcase a very successful project that is working around the Suez Canal. And I think you will have our contacts. If you need any support or any guidance or inquiries, please communicate with us. And thank you again for joining our session. Thank you.